Okay, once you've got all that data in and you've figured out the difference or the change, you need to then make some calculations with that, because on its own, each trial doesn't have much value, but together they have a lot of value. And that's where you've got to start working out your averages. Now in this case, to find the average, we don't want to find the average of every number along here. We want to find the average of just the changes. So again, you're going to have to tell it how to figure that out. So if you were saying to someone else how to figure this out, you would literally take this one and this one and this one and this one and add them all together and then divide them by the number of different trials that you had. You just have to tell Excel to do the same thing. So in this case, you don't even have to tell it to add them up. You just have to tell it to find the average. So you go equals and start the word average, A, B. There's it gives you a whole heap of different types of averages. You've learnt about these perhaps in math, but in this case, we're just going to select average right now. And then it'll go, okay, average what? If you double click it, it'll put in the word average, and then it wants you to tell it which numbers. Now, because our numbers are in separate cells and you can't just highlight that whole line and say find average of this, you actually have to point it towards those cells. So depending on whether you're on a Mac or an Apple will depend on whether you use the control key or the command key. Now I'm holding down the command key. On a Mac it would be the control key, and I'm just highlighting all the different ones that I wanted to actually find the average of, and notice how it's taking them down and putting a comma between them. So I'm just holding down that key and it selects just the cells I put up. Now I've released that key. That was that little circle that you saw on the screen. Now I'm going to go enter. And there's my average, 2.9. So it's taken all of those numbers from those cells and averaged them. Now I wanted to use that same pattern to figure out the averages of all of these other ones here. I don't want to have to do that again. So again, you just take it until it turns into that little black cross. Click, right click, drag it down, and it will copy the pattern. So if I double click any of these, see? As long as they're in the same place, it will actually copy that pattern of how to figure it out. If you accidentally click another cell, it'll try and stick another cell in there, so go escape. You have to come out here, double click it. Now, if you want to get out of that, you just click out of it, escape, so you can't destroy the code that you've just typed in there. Because essentially what you're doing here is coding. Now, that's my average. That's great. That's great for a little basic graph now. So my next video is going to show you how to actually take those averages, put them into a basic graph, and then after that we'll look at standard deviation, range, and standard error.